What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Testing Tactics, the new channel where I started this channel mainly because I have a lot of firearms experience. I love teaching people, and from all the videos that I've seen online, there's a lot of other people that have great instructions. But the problem is, sometimes we, as instructors, tend to forget that not everybody has the same level of knowledge and understanding as us. So what happens is they go into things a little bit too quick, or they just blow by things that are very basic common knowledge. But for newer gun owners, it's not considered common knowledge. Everyone's new, everyone has been new at one point, so there is no harm, no foul in not understanding and saying, hey, hold on a second, I don't understand something. So today what we're gonna do, being that there's a pandemic going on right now, this COVID-19 or coronavirus or whatever you wanna call it, there's a lot of new gun owners out there. A lot of people have purchased guns for their self-protection, or just because I guess now is the time to buy. But it leaves a lot of people not understanding the fundamentals, the basics of firearm safety. So today's video is going to cover the 4 fundamentals of firearm safety. Now, with that being said, I would like to introduce you to my airsoft gun. You can tell by the orange tip, the slide does not come back. It takes airsoft BBs, although there are none in the magazine, and then it also takes a CO2 canister right there. Now, I use this as a training tool. I can go out in my backyard and shoot it. I can kind of get away with holstering it around the house and doing draws and stuff like that. I do dry fire with my actual pistols as well, but this is a good tool that I use to go out back and just get some target practice when I can't go to the range. And the reason that I'm using this is because there's going to be some things that I do in the video that I wouldn't do with a regular firearm. And that's the whole purpose of this video, right? So I'm teaching you the 4 fundamentals of basic firearm safety. So these are going to be across the board, no matter if it's a handgun, a rifle, shotgun, it doesn't matter what it is. This is going to just be the basic fundamentals for every type of firearm. So rule number 1 is treat every firearm as if it's loaded and know the status of your firearm. So what that means is I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing with this gun, I treat it like it's loaded and it's going to fire. Now, guns are not dangerous things unless they're put in dangerous people's hands. There's a lot of safeties that are put in each firearm that make them safe. That's the whole purpose of them. So for Glocks, most people think, oh, they're going to go off if you just slightly touch them, and that's not the case, right? You have to have a little bit of training, you have to have a little bit of understanding of it. But yes, there are accidents that happen, there are some failures that happen, but it's very few and far between. But you want to make sure that you treat every firearm as if it's loaded. So you don't want to just be walking around and try to throw this across the room to a buddy or just, leave it around. You want to make sure that when you have this, it's treated as if it's loaded. And the second part of that is to know the status of your firearm. Now, that doesn't necessarily come down to a safety for your other people that are just wandering around so you don't accidentally fire at somebody. If you treat every firearm as if it's loaded, no accident should happen, right? Of course not. But knowing the status of your firearm is a safety thing for you and your family. If I'm carrying this firearm, or if I'm sitting in my house and somebody kicks in my door, now all of a sudden, if I pick up my gun, I have to know, okay, there's already one in the chamber and it's ready to fire. If there's not, if I have it without the magazine in it and I'm sitting next to it, and somebody kicks in my door and I pick up the gun, well, it's an empty gun. It doesn't really do much, right? It could be a deterrent if they see it, but that's not the point. Right? You want to know the status of your firearm so at all times you are ready to pick that up and defend your life and defend your family. That's the safety aspect for you personally. Now, number 2, do not point the firearm at anything you do not intend to destroy. Keyword there being destroy, right? So the reason that we use the word destroy and not kill is because you may not always be pointing it at something that you want to kill, right? So if I'm sitting next to my truck and I just point the barrel and all of a sudden something happens, right? I'm not paying attention, my finger goes in the trigger well, it ends up going off. It just went through my truck and it just destroyed that part of my truck. So that's the same thing. It's the same thing as if I want to make sure that I'm not pointing it at something like glass that I don't want to destroy. I'm not pointing it at my camera that I don't want to destroy. And this is why I'm using an airsoft gun. I obviously wouldn't be doing things like this with a real firearm. I'm inside of my house. Out at the range, it's okay. Right? I can point it at a camera if it's offset, but there's not going to be anyone behind that camera. Does that make sense? I would be fine with destroying this camera. Would it suck? Yeah, it would suck. But again, that's where you want to be sure you pay attention to what you're doing. Don't point at anything you don't want to destroy. Number 3, keep your finger out of the trigger guard or trigger well until you have your sights aligned with your target and you are ready to fire. So, this right here is most commonly referred to as the trigger guard. Everything within it is considered the trigger well. Some people interchange them and say, hey, your finger's in the trigger guard. Okay, got it. Your finger's in the trigger well. It's the same exact thing, okay? But that is what these two pieces are. This is your trigger well, and this is your trigger guard. What that does is it guards the trigger from anything from the front and underneath. That is the purpose of it. Now, what I mean by keeping your finger out of the trigger well until you're ready to fire is I don't want to just be sitting here like this. This trigger is not a finger rest, okay? It is a trigger. So you want to ensure that the only time you have your finger on the trigger is when your sights are aligned and you are ready to fire. So you don't want to put your finger in the trigger well until your weapon is pointed at what you're wanting it to point at. Now, as we get into more videos and things like that, we'll get into prepping the trigger and things like that, but we don't need to worry about that right now. As a new gun owner, you just need to focus on the safeties of your firearm. So at no point should you ever put your finger within that trigger well without having your sight aligned with your target. Now that brings us to our 4th and final point. Know your target, know what is beyond your target, what is in front of your target, and what is to the sides of your target. Now this is extremely important if you ever have to employ your firearm. So what you want to know is, what is your target? What are you shooting at? Are you shooting at a piece of paper? Are you shooting at a piece of steel? You need to know that so you have the right standoff. You want to know what's between you and your target, because if there's someone laying down between you and your target, you're probably not going to want to take a shot, right? Obviously, if there's someone standing in between you and your target, you're definitely not going to want to take a shot because of the fact that there's someone between you and you could possibly hit them. You want to know what's behind your target, because bullets don't just stop at the first thing that they hit. They will travel through multiple different objects. So if you hit, say you hit a person, that bullet more than likely is going to pass through that person and keep going. So if there's another person standing behind them, then it's going to end up hitting that person as well. If you're shooting at steel, you have to know what's behind your target, because if you miss, well, that bullet's not going to stop. It didn't hit anything. So it's very important to know those two. Now, the one that most people forget is the one to the sides of the target. You want to know what's all around you, because at any point in time, someone could come from the left or the right and end up coming straight through your line of sight and through your target line. So what that means is you want to make sure that you're paying attention, because even as I'm shooting my airsoft gun out in the backyard, I could be shooting at a target and all of a sudden my dog comes running across between it. It's going to happen. And that's not just a thing because I have dogs or anything like that. That happens in real world. As you're shooting, a bird could fly in front of you. Now, got it, it's not going to be that big of a deal if you accidentally hit a bird, because that's just bad luck, right? But say you're shooting at a range and someone's not paying attention and they just start walking down range, or they go to walk in front of you. Like, these things happen because people don't pay attention and people don't know any better, right? So that's going to be a key thing, to know your surroundings anytime you have a firearm in your hand and you are shooting. It's very important to pay attention. So that is going to conclude today's video, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and keep an eye on the channel. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on. I'm going to start having a pistol course, a rifle course, and a shotgun course, and it's going to be from the absolute basics on up. So it's going to be how to clear the weapon and what that means. It's going to be how you should stand. It's going to be how you load it, how you grip it. It's going to be everything from the base up for all the new shooters, all the beginners out there. That's what this channel is going to be about. I'm going to try to teach people in a very base level way so that everyone can get on the same understanding and same playing field when it comes to firearms, right? So I'm also going to have some product reviews. I'm going to have some cool shooting videos. I'm going to bring some other people on the channel who may not have as much experience. We'll go through the teaching process with them and see their improvements. So keep an eye on the channel, and there'll be some pretty cool stuff coming out. Learn something every day and get better every day. Stay safe out there.